Hi there. In this screencast, I'm going to change the appearance of this very stock HTML document using a attached style sheet. So here's my HTML document, what I have so far. I'm editing it in brackets. So the first thing I'm going to do is quickly link a style sheet. So I do that up in the head, not the header, but the head. And I do that with a link. And the attributes for the link, there's a few of them. In this situation, we do need relation, and it's a style sheet. And type. Notice that the only type that's available, that little drop down that pops up, is text CSS. If I just press enter on my keyboard, it pops that value in there so I don't have to type it out. And let's tell this document where we're gonna get that from. Oops. Equals, and it's gonna be in CSS, and I'm gonna call it screens. Sorry, screen singular. Now the reason I said screens, screen.css. The reason I said screen is because one of the students in the Intro to Web Design course had expressed that file name as a plural. So if you had done that, make sure you make it plural here, or you change the file name of the actual screen.css in your CSS folder. Otherwise the link won't work, of course. And then media. Notice only screen came up. So this is the link to the style sheet. Now let's go see and make sure I have that file. I don't believe I have the folder or the file. So let me just show you my file browser real quick. Again, I'm using Windows 7, so that's why it looks like this. And what we're working on is in Project Resume, if I go inside of that. So you see I have an images folder. It's got a bunch of images in it, which we'll look at next week. And I don't have a CSS folder. So what I'm going to do is just go back to brackets and choose File New, Control N, or the Mac counterpart, and then I'll choose File Save, and it goes back to the brackets folder. So I'm just going to find my websites 2, and I'll create a new folder. Something's going on with my system. I have to refresh all of this all the time. CSS, press enter. I'm just going to refresh that. Puts in the name, I double click, now I'm inside of that CSS folder, and I'm going to call this screen, and save. So there's my new document, and now anything I do with this will style. So I'm going to quickly show you a couple of ways we can select the elements in the document and then style them. So a very simple way is just to select all of the tags of a certain name and then style all of the elements within those tags. So we have a bunch of paragraphs, so you just use a plain old P, and then we use a curly bracket and a closed curly bracket. Those brackets close by themselves because of this selection here. And then we just use our style name and a value. So I'm just going to use background color. So I'm going to make all of the paragraphs background color a certain color. So if I choose background, and notice we get a list here, so you can just actually choose background. I'm using my arrow key on my keyboard and press enter. And then we get a list of a whole bunch of colors we can choose. So some of them have some nice names. I'll go with this dark slate blue. No reason. And a semicolon to terminate the statement. You'll see that's ubiquitous in a lot of coding languages. So now if I file save this and refresh it, let me just quickly show you what that looks like. Of course, this is not pretty, not yet. I'm just showing you how to actually add these selectors. So that's one way we can select or create a rule based on a tag. And we'll look at some of the other ways as well. Let me just quickly show you some of the other ways. So we also have, I'm just going to change this, we also have an ID called page. So div ID equals page. So the way we grab a hold of something with an ID is with the pound symbol. So that means anything with the ID, and then I'm going to say page. So basically anything with the ID page, any element with the ID page, and again we're only supposed to have one, will be that color. So I'll save that and refresh. So now we see that the entire page, again, we didn't grab a hold of a tag this time. This time we just referred to anything that had the ID page, and again, you're only supposed to have one thing with the same ID. So again, doesn't look pretty, but let me quickly style something else. I'll try, what did we have? We had something with the class equals main. Now the way you grab a hold of a class is with a dot. So hash mark is for ID, dot is for class. And we had main, right? File save, and I'll refresh. So that whole section had the class main. So those are three ways we can grab a hold of elements. Again, ID, the tag name, or the class. So what I want to do is add a color scheme to this layout. Now, you don't have to come up with your own color schemes. There's actually a utility on the web that you can get colors from. So I'm going to quickly grab the colors from that utility. So I'm just going to bring up my browser here. And the website is Peloton. So if you type in PALETTON.com, you'll get to this nice color picker. And this allows you to export these colors as CSS. So I'm going to go with something fairly simple. I'll go with a, what do they call it? Triad 3-color. And then to pick the colors that you want to use, you can just drag that. I'll call that the top dot. I'm going to put it at something blue. So there we go. And then we can choose presets within that by choosing presets here, and then here's a bunch of basically shades of that layout. I'm just going to go with deep colors because I'm going to use mostly white in my layout. That looks pretty good to me. Now in order to create the actual CSS that we can use in our style sheet and then grab the CSS to be used in elements, you can use this table exports. So if I choose tables export here, then it allows me to choose a variety of formats. I'll go with CSS. HTML is nice as well, but we'll see how CSS works for us. And then it gives me all of the colors as hex code, so every single color we saw in that layout, or as RGB codes. I'm going to use hex because that's what I'm most familiar with. So hex codes are 6-digit combinations of letters and numbers. And I'm just going to grab that and paste it into my CSS. So I don't need this anymore. I'll be doing a little better job with that. So there's my colors. So I could notice that we have these slash star. This is how we comment CSS. So you remember it was shift comma exclamation mark dash dash in HTML. In CSS, that's our comment. So I'm just going to say color palette. So now I have all the colors I can possibly use in my layout. Now if you want to actually see those colors, if you just mouse over the hex code, you see you get a little block of color that you can then, if you like that color, you can choose it for your element by copying and pasting. So I'm going to quickly add a background color to the body of the document. So the body again is a tag that we saw in our HTML, so we could just go body and curly bracket, and I'll just choose something arbitrary. This one's probably fine. You can choose whatever colors you like, by the way. I'm just going to grab that whole thing and copy it and say background color. And again, I can use my little, where's my background color? There it is. And I'll paste, Control V, and a semicolon to terminate your statement. Notice that there's no semicolons here because these are single lines, but I always like to add a semicolon because I know I'll be adding more styles later on. So I added a background color to the body. I'm going to add the rest of the colors. I'm going to add, may as well add them right now as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add something to the header. Now we can have more than just one rule for each of these elements as well. Nice. So it looks pretty horrible as far as the colors are concerned, but whatever. Apparently they don't clash. Alright, so now I'm going to quickly add colors to my paragraphs, my headings, and my list items. So I'll make my all of my headings a certain color. So I'll say H1. Now this is another way we can select tags. Well, basically this allows us to create the same rule for multiple tags. So I want H1, H2, H3, so I just use a comma and I'll add a different back. This time I'm just going to use color. So color is just the text. Notice we don't have text or font color, it's just plain old color. Now let's take a look at what we have so far. So that's colors in a nutshell. The next thing we'll look at in the next video, this one's already quite long, is dimension of our elements and placement or position of our elements. Thanks so much for watching.